Are you ready to stop riding the emotional elevator of life? Are you ready to learn how to elevate your emotions that keep you psychologically traumatized or in an addictive behavior? You are in the right place. Here is your host, Sandee Byrd, trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach of the Emotional Elevator Show.
Welcome, everyone. I just love having a little magic wand and that magical music. Of course, I am Sandee Byrd, the host of Emotional Elevator, and you are joining me on Inspired Choices Network. And seeing this wand, if I could, all I know now, go back in time and be a different mom, I would. But first, I do want to go. I do want to go. I do want to go. Let me go. First, let me do some shout outs to all those wonderful, and I shouldn't have said mom. I should have basically said parents because there are some absent moms and there's fathers raising kids. So, to anybody who's raising a child, kudos to you. Kudos. So I want to take a moment to kind of land where we are so we can engage in this conversation. And as we land where we are, if you want, come over to Inspired Choices Network and join the chat room and we can have a conversation because it's very important with topics like this because I've studied a lot on it and worked with other women and men as well on parenting and what skills are there for parents and stuff. But so let's just land in this moment, take a good deep breath in, and just exhale. And then what I want you to do, whether you are a parent, whether you're a child, whether you are a grandparent, whoever you are, just give yourself a good hug for today. This has been a big factor that I always talk to my clients about. And when I'm doing laughter yoga and I'm out in the community, is we don't give ourselves enough credit. We don't pat ourselves on the back. We don't give ourselves hugs. And that is a big part of life is we have got to appreciate the challenges that we have gone through in life. The just embrace the challenges and the growth and the endless possibilities in life to continue to grow and become the best part of you can become, whether you are a parent, a mom. Because this episode tonight is all about, it's all about being a mom, being a mom and how hard and rewarding it is. And the latest thing, I'm sorry, I'm playing around with my computer right now. The latest thing last night, and this was kind of funny, but not really funny because someone said, you know what I learned in life? Who the best parents are. And I'm like, wow, there's some perfect parents, the best parents. And I was like, who are they? The ones who don't have kids. Well, that makes sense. But I'm here to say, as a parent, as a mother, that I come on here and I talk about a lot of the mistakes I made, the um, whole mother syndrome, and all of that. I did make mistakes, but now going back through it, and as I've worked on myself, and each one of my children are working on themselves, they've stopped the criticizing of what I didn't do or what I did do that they didn't like, or this or that, or you didn't know our love languages because we didn't tap into that until 10 years ago. And my kids are now adults, so they were already formed as adults when we went through that in their apology languages. So those are a lot of things I did not know. So I didn't know how to incorporate that being a mom. And that's very important. And the biggest thing that some of the lessons I learned from other moms is you never treat each child different. Well, my kids were different, and I did start treating them different. Some people tell me that's wrong. So, as we sit here and think about being a mom, it is one of the hardest jobs in the world. I have ran places before. I've been at the top of the management tier. And I can tell you that was a much easier job than being a mom, because being a mom and myself, a full-time worker and a mom, sometimes I did not have the capacity to take on my children. I had 3 children, all 18 months, then 2 years apart. So between the oldest and the youngest, there's less than 4 years. There's basically 38 months. No, yeah, 4 years apart. So there was a lot of challenges with them growing up, getting into fights, getting into trouble, doing things to each other. And I just was exhausted and I did not have the capacity to actually sometimes handle that. And was that wrong? I don't know. As my kids say, we unravel a lot of the trauma that was put on our family. And but now we start seeing the attributes. Like last night, I got the pleasure of listening to my daughter here in Richmond. I'm part of the difficult conversation. She has joined into the difficult conversations. And for me to sit there and her to talk about, because I already have had the conversation, my kids are multicultural, and for her to talk about how her and I could not understand each other on different cultural levels. Yes, I can understand not being accepted, because there was times in my life where I wasn't the most popular person. No, I was a class clown at one point. I was fat, I was thin. So I can understand not belonging, but I can't understand not being accepted, being too white for black and being too black for white. That part I can't understand. But I could have done maybe a better job in embracing it to learn how. So sitting there and her talking about her stories and growing up as a mom, it's sometimes heartbreaking. Like there's tears that come down, but it's because I acknowledge that that happened. But since then, we can sit in those spaces and we can sit there and elevate each other. Because then she right away says, my mom taught me, don't rely on anybody in your life, just rely on yourself, because you've got to be able to take care of yourself. So there was positives, but there was also negatives. And a job as a mom is one of the hardest jobs out there. And I wish, like I said, here's my magic wand. If I could go back, or if I can be an expert of what I've learned from my own children and what we've come through in working on our individual healing and our collective healing, if I could just tell people you're going to make mistakes, but it's how you handle those mistakes, because it really, 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 I've heard so many other moms say, I would never let my child tell me everything your child does, my daughter, my sons, whatever. Why not? Why not? Now, they're not allowed to disrespect me. So there is a difference there. They don't disrespect me. But when they tell me, Mom, like this traumatized me by you being having cold mother syndrome, this changed this trajectory in my life. And Mom, because you worked so much and you weren't home, you did not see this happen. Mom, they're not saying, Mom, you're the worst mother in the world. What they're telling me is things so that we can change it for their next generations. But giving our kids and our young adults that space to tell us. It's the same thing as when our kids are young and we've had the worst day at work and they jump in our lap and all they want, Mom, just put your arms around me. And you're like, can you just give me a moment? Boy, I just shook that whole camera. We don't realize that trajectory we're putting on them. They're knowing something's up, so they come to embrace us, to give us that love that they can see we need and we push them. I did that. So if the one thing you can get from me, don't do that. Embrace your child in that moment, because guess what? When someone's loving you, honestly loving you unconditionally, you're going to feel better. So if you have a bad day, and that's what elevating your emotions is, when you have a bad day and you get home, if you're a young mom or you're about to be a mom, or you're me with older children, this is the cycles you can start breaking before you start having those grandchildren, and have those conversations with your kids. But think about this. When you really are having a bad day and someone just comes in and gives you a hug, if it's your spouse, you feel better because you feel like they understand, they listen. You don't need to download on your child and tell them what life is like at work. Don't scare them. But if they go, Mommy, can you just give me a hug? They're reading your energy and they're trying to uplift you. And that is attracting the emotion that you're craving. Instead, sometimes we get so stressed that we're like, not right now. Can you give Mommy a moment? Mommy had a bad day. Well, you don't know if, and I'll use my own kids' names, Cassie, Jordan, or Devin, they had a bad day too. And we're deflecting. So that's what tonight's topic is about mom's jobs are the hardest jobs in the world, and none of us are going to be perfect. We're all going to make mistakes, but allowing these mistakes to be talked about in safe and secure environments with our children. And we need to start reading our children. We just went through a pandemic of COVID, and some people were in homes with their young children and they lashed out. And now these children have these anxieties, or the children were put in environments where we didn't talk about, well, we don't want to talk about COVID. We don't want to talk about this, or we don't want to embrace all this. I get that. But at the same time, now we're sending these children out and wondering why they have social anxiety. I've seen it. I witness it every day when you're around people that are just scared of human contact. And think about this as a mom. How many times did you just were in a great mood and you had your child sitting on your lap and y'all just, oh, even when they were teenagers, my kids sometimes jumped on my husband in my lap. And I wish I wouldn't have been that one that pushed them off and just sat there, because they're trying to celebrate their their outcomes. They're trying to celebrate themselves too, and they're trying to raise you up. And that's a big thing. But we are going to go into what are some of the things you can do to elevate your emotions that as moms, sometimes we take for granted, or we feel guilty. That's a big one. As parents, sometimes we feel guilty about things with our kids. There's no reason to feel guilty. We are not handed a manual. And I've already talked about this. We are not given manuals when we have children. We're not given do this, do that, don't do this. And this is the book, the dummy book for parents who want to spoil the child, spare the rod. Here's the handbook for dummies who think spanking is okay. Here is the book for putting your child in a corner book. None of us know what the right punishment or theory is in all this. It's how we transition our kids into life that is the biggest part, and how we also teach them the steps to transition, and how we teach them how to elevate their emotions, and how we teach them to embrace their emotions and to talk about their emotions, or to visualize their emotions, or to write down their emotions, or to draw pictures around their emotions, dance around their emotions, sing around their emotions, laugh. Too many times we're still telling our kids, Big boys don't cry. Girls, you got to be strong. You got to fight for your right. And I'm about to say a song, fight for your right to party, but fight for your rights. When are we just going to be content with just being and teaching our kids it's okay to be? It's okay to say you want to be a hairdresser. It's okay if they like being dirty and we don't. These are things that when we start hounding on our children, it's coming back to us in different forms. But it is time for our first break. I know this is kind of a heavy conversation. So during the break, I already picked up my wand because I'm going to send magic out to everybody. During the break, if you're a parent, if you're a child, anyone out there, I don't know why I keep announcing that because we all are somebody, just give yourself a good hug. Every day you should give yourself your own hug and elevate your emotions. So we are going to go to our first break. Of course, you are listening to me, Sandee Byrd, on Emotional Elevator on the Inspired Choices Network. And if you're listening to me on any other platform, come on, come over to Inspired Choices Network and get in the chat because I would love to have people in the chat and we can have some dialogue together and ask questions. But again, you're listening to me on Inspired Choices Network, and I am talking about being a mom is hard, or being a parent in general is the hardest job out there. And what can we do to raise our emotions and elevate our emotions and just accept what we don't know is what we don't know? So we are going to our first break, and I'm getting out my magic wand to send you some magic tonight. So thank you for joining me.
Are you living a life of psychological trauma or suffering from an addiction? Are you ready to learn new techniques to elevate your emotions without sustaining or obtaining them from substances that are not good for your mind or body? Then continue to tune into Emotional Elevator with trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach, Sandee Byrd, where you will learn techniques to elevate your emotions that don't require a magic pill, food, or impulsive behavior. Listen to Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific, on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to sandy@emotionalelevator.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I was talking in the first part of the show. Of course, I am Sandee Byrd, and you are joining me on Emotional Elevator on the Inspired Choices Network. I always forget to continue to introduce myself. But I was talking about that last night. There was a funny because everyone was saying, you know who the perfect parents are? The ones who don't have children. Because we all make mistakes. We aren't giving manuals on how to raise children. It's funny because we're given a manual. I think even my gynecologist gave me a manual what to expect the first 9 months pregnancy book. But we're not giving manuals because there's too many manuals out there. It's spare the rod, spoil the child. It's does standing your child in a corner produce positive outcomes? Does spanking your child produce lack or cure up? So there's nothing that we do That's not right, because there's so many people out there who have spoiled their child, and their children are also great people in society, because not only did they spoil them, they taught them values at the same time. Like they might have spoiled them, and like we did, went down and fed the homeless at the same time, so they could see both sides of things. I remember, learning, because of the trauma I went through with my own mother. Oh, I don't want to do that to my kids. But instead, I did the opposite, which still traumatized my kids by pulling back, going, oh my gosh, I need to watch what I say, what I do, how I act in front of my kids, because of what my mom did to me. So instead, I still had those, as my daughter now, she'll say, yeah, my mom was angry. She threw pots and pans, sometimes dishes. But my grandma did it a lot worse. But that was because I didn't want to hurt them. But in the same sense, I did. Were there times where my kids stood in corners? Yeah. But did I explain to them or have that conversation after? No. So just remember, there's no book, there's no guide, there's no training for 1 to 2 year olds. Watch the video, and then we'll have a quiz at the end. Training for 3 to 4 year olds. We'll have a quiz at the end. Training for no. But as moms and as parents, I'm just going to generalize this. As parents, we don't get to walk the red carpet. We don't get the Oscars when our kids grow up and say, Sandy Byrd, here is your award for doing the job of being a mom. Or to any father, here's your award for doing the job of raising, because all we end up finding out at some point is what we did wrong. And then sometimes your children tell you exactly what you did right. Like, I spent some years listening to the wrong from my daughter and my sons, and now I'm getting all the right because I embraced it. I took that on. I did not say it was my identity, but I took it on and said, okay, well, now how can I change? How can I change this? And one of the conversations recently with my son, I was doing something that always drove him crazy. And when I did this, um, he says, Mama, I gotta go. You're killing my vibe. And I was like, okay, but how am I killing your vibe? Mom, you just are. Well, do you understand? I cannot change if I don't know what it is I need to change. And most parents would just be like, okay, whatever, talk to me when you're ready. And maybe most parents aren't. So if you're listening to this, please reach out to me at sandy@emotionalelevator.com or Sandee, Sandee, Byrd, Byrd, coach@gmail.com, or even on my website, Sandee Byrd, and tell me I'm really off base with this. But some of the people that used to be in my circle would say, I'd never let my kids talk to me like that. No, I want to know what areas do I need to improve in to better my relationship with them now that they are adults. Because I have worked with children who come to me and unload everything that happened in their childhood, and then they're like, yeah, but I think you could help my mom. Okay, well, I'm focused on you. And well, my mom's never going to change, so I just got to cut her out of my life. Or she'll never listen to me have this type of conversation. Um, it's that too. It's making sure, sorry if you didn't hear, there was a dog that barked in the background. Um, there was having those conversations and embracing those changes. And what can we do together to elevate our emotions and bring together the collective and the harmony? Because what my son was saying that I do to him, and I was like, okay, and he talked me through it. And then the next day he was like, Mom, I love you because you are willing to. I said, so you got to continue to call me out when I do this. But then when I have a conversation with my daughter, if I do the same thing, that does not phase her one bit. So it's kind of that challenge in life when we're raising children. And it's the same thing as I think it was even my grandmother that said, don't treat your kids any different. You got to treat them all exactly the same. But I couldn't because all my kids were different. They needed different support in different areas. And yes, I didn't give them that. But that's all about that part of it. Now it's how do we elevate our emotions with our children? If you are a parent of a small child, when they want to give you a hug, just give them a hug back and literally feel their positive energy going into you. As a mom, I could tell you when my kids were growing up, I would feel guilty if I took moments for myself. But there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. And I can say that a million times. I really wish back when they were growing up that maybe if I did take time with myself, I could have seen some of the things that I was doing. I could have said, you know what? I'm not showing my kids emotions. I'm not embracing their emotions. I'm just showing my emotions to them because I'm mom. But just think if I would have taken that time to step back. And there's nothing wrong, and this is part of what I'm seeing a lot of, is women to go by themselves and just spend time by themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting down and laughing. I 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I actually had a mother bring her child to one of my laughter yoga classes. And it was great. It was the most wonderful class because not only could he see these older women, his mom's age, and younger woman, and an older woman, probably a grandma's age, being funny and laughing and having a great time. And then he was able to have a great time, and his mom was able to show him how precious it is to laugh. Just doing things like that. One of the things that my family we still haven't done, and I still have it on our list to do, is do a smash room. To just get out all that anxiety in a smash room. I do remember sometimes when my kids were kids that we had boxing gloves a little bit, the playful ones, because I used to always tell my sons, here, box it out. Um, but it's doing that, getting down, having those moments if your children are young. But as they grow older, something I vowed to do was to take each one of mine on a trip just with them so we can build on our relationship and so we can have those heart to heart, one on one talks. We kind of make it our own little retreat where we go and I do what they love to do. I put myself aside, and I think I've already mentioned this. Sorry, I got a scratch. Um, Last year in November, I decided, I've been bugging my middle son to go on the trip with me. And he finally said, I'm going to go to Zoo Tampa because he had been watching Zoo Tampa. And we went. And at one point, we had the best time, best time. But at one point, he got to see his mom just being silly and enjoying myself and like, oh my God, look, like I'm getting excited just as they're like, oh my gosh, like your mom's sincerely excited because I was able to kind of be that child with him being reliving some of his childhood again. And that helps elevate my emotions because when we got home, I was like, man, that was one of my best trips. And it was spending it with my own child and being able to, before we left, before we got on the airplane, we did have a little conversation. That was what I wanted to start having. But then the rest of the time, we didn't have that much deep conversation. But he did bring up some things in kind of a matter to say, Mom, this is what I don't appreciate when you're with me. And I enjoy that. And I love that because I can't change who I am unless I know. And those moments now in my life, I used to cry and be like, oh, I do everything wrong as a mom. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing with me because now I know what it is we can work on together. And that's what elevating your emotions are all about is just coming together to take that mesh and mesh it together and lift both each other up. And like I say, as a mom, be you, be that sympathetic person, but also be okay to show your emotions to allow them the freedom to show their emotions and dance with them. I see that is a big sometimes thing that is missing. What do you like to do? I had a client, gosh, it's been 2 years since no, it's been a year since we worked together. And the biggest thing was she had a very young child and she was a single parent because the father passed away. And she would tell me, I'm so tired. And she's a go, 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 go. And I said, well, have you ever thought about doing like all those things you're not supposed to do, like lay down with her? Or if you're tired of doing all the things she does, why don't you set a timer and engage in something you like to do so she can see, well, mommy really likes to do this and we can do it together. And that was a big turning point for her was she really enjoyed like the moments where she felt chaotic with her daughter because her daughter was under the age of 3. So it was very chaotic. But when she, okay, now it's time to do what mommy wants to do. And mommy wants to sit here and meditate. And yeah, in the beginning, her daughter asked those questions, but then joined in because that's the biggest part of this is elevating yourself as a mom. And sometimes if we're single parents, and I should just say parents, when we're sometimes our single parents, we don't have that escape. But what if you did something where you went somewhere where someone provided you with some childcare and you were able to do for you, whether it's sitting in silence, whether it's playing around a golf, whether it's doing something, because sometimes you have to make those sacrifices to elevate yourself. So it is time for our second break. So we are going to go to break. You're listening to me here on Inspired Choices Network on Emotional Elevator, and I am Sandee Byrd. And like I said, I would love for people to reach out to me and give me feedback and say, you know what? I wish you could have dug more into this, or you're right. We do feel like this. Or, you know what? I think this was the best thing, with my kids growing up because I do know a lot about this from my own experience and from my clients, but there's always different answers to everything out there. So again, and time for our break. And again, give yourself a big hug and appreciate who you are and the challenges, changes, healing, embracing that you want to do for yourself. So it is time for break, and I've got my magic wand to send magic your way. Thank you.
Are you living a life of psychological trauma or suffering from an addiction? Are you ready to learn new techniques to elevate your emotions without sustaining or obtaining them from substances that are not good for your mind or body? Then continue to tune into Emotional Elevator with trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach, Sandee Byrd, where you will learn techniques to elevate your emotions that don't require a magic pill, food, or impulsive behavior. Listen to Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to sandy@emotionalelevator.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back. This is all tonight. I am Sandee Byrd, of course, on Emotional Elevator on the Inspired Choices Network. I'm a dog mom, and the dog is like literally, I think my husband's fighting with our dog because he wants to come in here with me, and he can't. So I've been talking a lot about being a mom, and we're not given manuals, and we are going to make mistakes, or we did make mistakes. And a lot of things that I listen to, besides codependencies with children, I feel responsible. We are responsible, but that doesn't mean we take on that guilt for the rest of our adult children's lives. A couple of my clients that I worked with that are mothers is ones that are in codependency relationships, and also ones that take on that guilt, and their children are adults, or they deflect. Well, that's them. Like, I gave them everything. Yeah, but you didn't give them everything. So it's learning that equal balance, and also realizing that when our children become adults, that age is up to you. But I'm saying when children become adults, when they go off to college or move out or get that big job and they're not living in your home, they are not your responsibility. They are not your responsibility to try to heal. They are not your responsibility to try to take care of. And yes, as the economy is bad, I understand a lot more adult children are going back home because they can't afford out in the life. But that doesn't mean you take on the responsibility of a parent again. Continue to elevate yourself. Continue to don't take on that responsibility. Because that's a big thing. Sometimes as parents, when we feel like, and I can tell you, I have sat in the rooms and listened to my children tell me what I didn't do, but I had to work on my own self, and I realized that they are responsible for working on themselves. At that point, I can carry the guilt and continue to do for, or can I work on myself and elevate myself so they can see there is there is a rainbow. There's a rainbow out there, because that's a big thing. Sometimes as being the parent, you've got to show them, yes, the cards weren't dealt for us perfectly. We got some jokers, we got some aces, we had some queens, but we had a lot of jokers. But it's up to us to elevate and to kind of show them that we can elevate. And a lot of the things to elevate yourself as a parent is, like I said, take time for yourself. If you need to go in a space and cry to yourself. And if your child sees you crying, even as an adult, let them understand what it is you feel. But don't discredit them either if that's the way they want to feel. Because that's another thing is when you're elevating your emotions and you want them to elevate too, you've got to give them the space to elevate. But how can you elevate your emotions? There's a lot of ways. A lot of us, once we get to be empty nesters, I was this way in the beginning where, oh, we need to take family trips and we need to do this and we need to do that. No, after I realized, no, I don't really want to do that. I started doing the things I want to do. But like I said, last year was family first, and I took my kids on vacations, and I'd already traveled with my oldest son a couple of times, but I did. And every year, my daughter and I, we do a trip together. And it's rewarding because we get to just surround ourselves in a place that we both enjoy. But as a mom now, I get to put myself first. And I think that's the biggest thing that sometimes moms, we feel guilty about. Well, I don't want to do this because what if Cassie needs me? I don't want to go do that because I don't have the support I need. Trust me, there are many, 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 many people out there that will help you, that will support you in your endeavors in life. If you need a break, if you're a single parent and you're listening to me and your kids are not grown and you need to elevate yourself, there are groups out there in almost every group. There are meetup groups. I know Meetup is everywhere where you can meet people who have kids and join your own group. Put it out there yourself to elevate. There's AI, social media is such a big platform. If you're struggling with something, put it out there. Put it out there. If you need help with something, ask. Because elevating your emotions are wonderful. And what I can tell you is I love to see children, young adults, my kids' age coming to my laughter yoga and just sitting there embracing laughter yoga. And these moms that get in there and just love laughing, love laughing. I love going into some of these even movement classes. I just recently did aesthetic dance this weekend, and to see young moms and a lot of moms my age that were out there just gotta let this energy go, gotta let it go, gotta let it go, gotta elevate myself. And that is a big part of life is we've got to embrace our feelings and deal with them, but also work on them. Because as moms, it is one of the hardest jobs because if you have 1 to 6, my husband and I, we have 6 kids. And if you don't think there's a call once a week that we're trying to solve a problem, listening to a dispute, hearing, for my husband, it's more hearing about his children and grandchildren. And for me, it's more about, look, they want me to go for this promotion. My oldest son getting back into music now. Mom, they want me to play here. They want me to play here. Someone called me at the last minute and wants me to do this. My record's coming out. My middle son, Mom, I'm doing this. This is great. Or you want to come to eat lunch with me or dinner with me and his girlfriend? It's wonderful to be able to have that communication and those phone calls, those phone calls. But it's also nice to be able to, as an parent, go, No, I'm okay right now. I need to think about me in this moment. It's okay for you not to go, oh my gosh, it's my kid. There was days where I was that person. Oh my gosh, what did I do now? What did, oh, what's going on with them? Oh, no, no, now I get to elevate myself, teach them how to elevate their emotions, teach them to do what it is that brings joy to them. And as mothers, when we're in the heat of things, do what brings joy to you. I I can tell you one of the biggest positive things of my kids growing up was remember dancing with their dad and remember us playing music and us laughing and joking and still doing laughing and dancing and oh my gosh, they loved sometimes with their dad when he would just start singing and sing as horrible as he could. But those are things that just elevated the emotions. And that's like now I can get in the kid with the car, get in the car with my kids and be funny and silly. And they're like, oh my gosh, mom, I never remember seeing this side of you. Or when I do retreats or knowing that I'm out here in the community and they see me in a magazine, go, Mom, you're actually in like talking about spreading joy in the community, like talking about elevating emotions, talking about all the things that happened in our childhoods and in our lives, and yet you're telling them how you can turn your life around. That is wonderful. Like for my own kids sometimes to send me messages saying, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud you're my mom. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm mom. That's what I should be saying to you. You do tell us all the time, but we want you to understand to see you elevating yourself and embracing the mistakes made and how you can turn your life around and you can elevate yourself. We're proud of you. It's more uplifting than anything I do. And as a parent, it's going to be more uplifting to you is when you can start just focusing on you. There's no guilt or shame in sometimes putting yourself first as a parent or as a mom. Gosh, I feel like I've gotten red in the face. But oh my gosh, it's almost time for my show to end. What can you do or what can I offer you to help you elevate your emotions? What is it that I can help you to elevate your emotions? Think about that. And we're going to go on our last break, and then the show will be over. But I am Sandee Byrd on Emotional Elevator here on Inspired Choices Network. And next week, you're going to want to stay tuned because a good friend of mine from Difficult Conversation, Vincent Ellis White, will be on here, who wrote a book, did a screenplay. He's been in the foster care system, not himself. Um, all the things he's gone through and how he elevates his emotions on a daily basis to keep it real. So we're going on our last break. So please stay tuned. But again, give yourself a big hug.
Are you living a life of psychological trauma or suffering from an addiction? Are you ready to learn new techniques to elevate your emotions without sustaining or obtaining them from substances that are not good for your mind or body? Then continue to tune into Emotional Elevator with trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach, Sandee Byrd, where you will learn techniques to elevate your emotions that don't require a magic pill, food, or impulsive behavior. Listen to Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific, on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to sandy@emotionalelevator.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We only got a couple of minutes, but what can I help you with to help elevate your emotions? How can I stop you from playing that guilt or shame game, from not being that perfect parent that we aren't going to be? Because the first part of the show was all about we don't get manuals for raising children. And I shouldn't just be saying, to moms, because there are some single dads out there that are raising their children. There's widows out there that are raising their children. And there are so many things that you can do for yourself to elevate your emotions. And have you ever really thought about playing the games and doing the things that your kids are doing? We're always the one pushing the swing, but how many times do you sit next to your child and swing on the swing? How many times when your child's laughing, you don't say, "What's so funny?" You just join in and laugh with them, because that elevates your emotions too. And you can't relive anything that you might have done wrong. What you can do is just learn the lesson and inspire yourself for the lesson that was learned, because that is a big, big, big part of when our kids grow up, is learning and having those conversations with them, so we know in the future, and learn your children's love language, apology languages, and just start being a parent, because you never stop being a parent. You never stop being a parent to your child, even when they are, my husband will tell you, 40 some, 30 some. Mine are 20 and they're all in their 20s, almost about to be 30. I'm still a parent. I'm still called for advice. I'm still called to have those conversations with. I'm still called with the crying, and I don't know how I'm ever going to change this. And just being there, listen, but then elevate yourself, because that's the only way to help, is do those things, do those retreats, do that 6 hours of silence. A lot of people struggle with that, but 6 hours of silence, or have a dance party with your kid. Laugh with your child. And I don't mean children, do it with your adult children. Do something that you both enjoy. My son just recently started really doing his music. So I go now and I dance. I dance and enjoy myself, because what he plays is amazing as to what I used to listen to. The Basic Underground, and how back in the day it was enjoyment to find where the next place was going to be that was going to have the underground music. So having him do his own beats and all of the house music he does and makes, and then to be there to enjoy it, has been an emotional experience of my own, to uplift myself, to go and watch each one of them in their shining moments. Because let me tell you something, as parents, nobody's going to roll out that red carpet for us. We can roll it out for ourselves and tell ourselves we did the best we could. We didn't have manuals. We don't have YouTube to tell us, what do I do if my 1-year-old is screaming and I can't find out why? What do I do to help myself in this moment? We didn't have that. I might have to look that up on YouTube now to see if it is out there for new parents, but there are no manuals. So thank you again tonight for joining me on Emotional Elevator. I am Sandee Byrd, and remember, the only perfect parents out there, grandparents, whatever, are those who don't have children. We're all going to make mistakes, and it's, what are we going to learn? How are we going to elevate ourselves? So thank you again. I'm sending magic out to you. Give yourself a big hug. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for listening to the Emotional Elevator Show. Sandee returns Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, start elevating your emotions and stop riding the emotional elevator that is stopping you from living the life you deserve.